Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Jalna.
And I'm Hem Khorsara, and on the show today, as a tense truce holds, the Syrian authorities evacuated Bedouin families from the Druze majority city of Suwaida after the truce in southern province halted a week of sectarian bloodshed. Meanwhile, the White House says that the US President Donald Trump was caught off guard by the Israeli strike in Syria last week, prompting Trump then to call Netanyahu to rectify the situation. How things unfolded on that front and whether or not this truce will hold, that's something that remains to be seen.
Also on World DNA, we bring you updates. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar has resigned from his post. In his resignation letter tendered to the President of India, Dhankar cited health reasons for stepping down as the Vice President of India. We'll bring you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines.
Congress expresses surprise at the sudden resignation of India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, saying it is totally unexpected and there is far more than meets the eye. Urges him to reconsider the decision.
Iran's foreign minister says Tehran has no plans to abandon its nuclear program, including uranium enrichment, despite the severe damage caused by US strikes to its facilities. The remark comes ahead of renewed talks with European powers.
Zelensky says Russia and Ukraine will hold new peace talks on Wednesday in a follow-up to two earlier rounds that made little progress on ending the war. The talks will be held in Istanbul.
World Health Organization says its facilities in Gaza came under Israeli attack, echoing calls from Western countries for an immediate ceasefire as Israel expanded military operations to central city of Deir al-Balah in the Gaza Strip.
He was caught off guard by the bombing in Syria and also the bombing of a Catholic church in Gaza. And in both accounts, the president quickly called the prime minister to rectify those situations.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the president was caught off guard by Israeli strikes in Syria last week, adding that Trump quickly called Prime Minister Netanyahu to rectify the situation.
White House bars the Wall Street Journal from traveling with US President Trump during his upcoming visit to Scotland after the newspaper reports that he wrote birthday message to sex trafficker Epstein.
Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio assure Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos that the US will defend its longtime ally and ramp up military resources aimed at deterring an assertive China. Marcos to President
Asia-Pacific markets are up, with Japan's Nikkei gaining nearly 1%, South Korea's Kospi rising slightly, and Australia's ASX 200 climbing 0.5%.
Former England midfielder Paul Gascoigne is now back home after being hospitalized over the weekend. The 58-year-old has battled alcohol addiction for decades and has also had other health problems in recent years. Now, US President Donald Trump was caught off guard by Israeli strikes in Syria last week.
The White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said that, adding to this, that Trump quickly called Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to rectify the situation. Listen to this.
He was caught off guard by the bombing in Syria and also the bombing of a Catholic church in Gaza, which, as you know, I addressed at my briefing last week. And in both accounts, the president quickly called the prime minister to rectify those situations.
Israel and Syria on Friday entered a US brokered ceasefire after Israel launched strikes on capital Damascus and the southern Druze majority city of Sweda, saying it aimed to put pressure on the Syrian government to withdraw its troops from the region amid ongoing clashes there.
On Monday, the Syrian authorities evacuated Bedouin families from the Druze majority city of Sweda after the truce in the southern province was halted. Which halted a week of sectarian bloodshed. Now, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights monitor said the ceasefire is largely holding despite isolated gunfire in areas north of Sweda city, with no new reports of casualties.
State news agency Sana quoted that governor of neighboring Daraa saying that his province had received about 200 Bedouin families who had been detained in Sweda, sending them to local shelters.
The ceasefire put an end to the violence that killed more than 1,260 people, about 800 of them Druze fighters and civilians, including nearly 200 non-combatants, summarily executed by government forces, according to the observatory. Now, the toll also includes more than 400 government security personnel.
Now, Damascus has accused Druze groups of attacking and killing Sunni Bedouins during the clashes, which broke out on the 13th of July. After a Druze vegetable seller was kidnapped by local Bedouins. The observatory's toll includes 35 Bedouins, 3 of them civilians, executed by Druze fighters. The Druze and Bedouin tribes have had tense relations for decades now.
White House is alarmed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's military operations in West Asia.
Several US officials are reportedly describing Netanyahu's approach as erratic and aggressive.
Now, according to a report by Axios, behind closed doors, some White House officials have gone as far as to call Netanyahu a madman and a child who just won't behave. The report quoted an official saying, "Bibi bombs everything all the time," quote unquote. Another senior US official called out Netanyahu for IDF shelling of a church in Gaza, saying it led President Trump to personally call the Israeli Prime Minister for an explanation.
Reports citing sources say the United States is frustrated, particularly after Israeli forces targeted a Syrian army convoy near Sweda last week. Israel claims the Syrian convoy had crossed into the demilitarized zone and posed a threat to the Druze community, a claim which has been outrightly denied by Syria.
Now, following the strikes, US worked to put an end to Sweda, the conflict there. The American ambassador to Turkey announced a ceasefire between the countries, though US has brokered a ceasefire that stopped the Israeli escalation. The Trump administration is worried about Netanyahu and his regional policies.
Now, the tensions over Syria came days after Netanyahu's visit to Washington, D.C. According to the report, a senior Israeli official said that Trump encouraged Netanyahu to hold parts of Syria during his first weeks in office. Despite Trump's desire to end the war in Gaza, Netanyahu continued his military push.
The Trump administration last week also publicly distanced itself from Israel's military actions in Syria. US State Department officials clarified that Washington did not support the Israeli strikes.
I can tell you regarding Israel's intervention and activity is the United States did not support recent Israeli strikes.
In the latest, Tom Barrack, a U.S. special envoy to Syria, in his words, said that the U.S. has no business in trying to compel Israel to do anything.
Well, we can't compel Israel to do anything, can we? That's not, America is not here to compel Israel to do anything. We're here to use our influence to bring calm minds together to come to a conclusion. The U.S. has no business in trying to compel Israel to do anything.
And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said Ukraine and Russia will hold new peace talks on Wednesday.
And this is a follow-up to the two earlier rounds. The talks will be held in Istanbul, the same venue as the previous negotiations, which failed to make any kind of breakthroughs in May and also in June. Now, Zelensky's announcement came only hours after Kremlin downplayed hopes for a breakthrough. In the backdrop of the latest Russian barrage on the Ukrainian capital Kiev, which sparked several fires and damaged an underground air raid shelter where civilians had taken refuge.
At war since Russia's all-out invasion in February 2022, the rival sides met in Istanbul on the 16th of May and the 2nd of June as Washington stepped up pressure for a deal, but no breakthroughs were made. Ukrainian and Russian negotiations only agreed to halt prisoner exchanges.
A senior Ukrainian official speaking on conditions of anonymity told AFP earlier that the Istanbul talks would probably focus on further prisoner exchanges and a possible meeting between Zelensky and Russia's President Vladimir Putin.
A bigger US shadow will hang over the latest talks, however, after Trump last week gave Russia the 50-day deadline and also said that arms supplies to Ukraine would be resumed.
Ukrainian foreign minister said on Monday that US intervention is the only thing that Russia is afraid of. Speaking at a joint news conference with his French counterpart, Andriy Sybiha said that Russian President Vladimir Putin was afraid of US President Donald Trump.
Putin is only afraid of Trump. He understands that only the United States of America can force them to make peace.
French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said his visit to Kyiv was aimed at showing that his country stands with Ukraine.
France stands with Ukraine to increase pressure on Russia and to provide Ukrainians with the means to defend themselves.
And 6 months into Donald Trump's comeback, America and the global order are unrecognizable.
Approval ratings fluctuate, markets soar, but beneath the surface lies a calculated storm reshaping wars, trade, borders, as well as politics, of course. Friends and foes both are in the firing line as the US president toes the America First line. Our next report gets you more on this. Take a look.
We achieved more in 6 months than almost any administration could accomplish in 8 years.
Right from Inauguration Day, Donald Trump set in motion a systemic overhaul, signing a mountain of executive orders. Immigration crackdown was at the top of his agenda, accompanied by a bid to end birthright citizenship. Trump also established the Elon Musk-led Doge. For most of February, the US president passed more executive orders. But the avalanche of these orders was met with equal force, with many lawsuits against most of the US administration's policy decisions. By the time February ended, all everyone could talk about was the infamous clash between Trump and his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky at the Oval Office. Come March, Trump announced 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada as a move against drug trafficking and immigration. But as days passed, a scandal rocked the administration. The Yemen war chat leak, revealed by the editor of The Atlantic magazine, shook Trump's core cabinet. April began with a market bloodbath. Moments after Donald Trump, in the gardens of the White House, announced a long list of reciprocal tariffs against America's trade partners. Trump called it Liberation Day, but just a few days later suspended the tariffs for 90 days to allow countries a chance to negotiate. New month, new standoff. As the US president targeted top Ivy League universities, the rift with Harvard in particular divided American society. The Trump administration sent a list of orders to Harvard. The institution chose to defy them and stood its ground, but lost government grants in the process. From here began public discourse and dissent over academic freedom and inclusivity. June witnessed a very public fallout between Trump and his once close ally, billionaire Elon Musk. Musk lashed out at Trump's big beautiful bill, calling it a disgusting abomination. The US president saw Musk's critique as a personal vendetta for the EV mandate. But by mid-June, attention shifted to the Israel-Iran war, as Trump and his administration scrambled to negotiate peace, but not before getting directly involved in bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. By the end of June, Trump announced a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. It is July. The US president has still not succeeded in ending the Russia-Ukraine war. Tariff negotiations are still ongoing with some nations, while others have been handed out letters. Markets have stabilized after April's volatility, but Americans are unhappy with Trump's approach to economic policies, particularly inflation. Controversies are raging on issues like the Epstein files, and cases still remain in court. Many policies face nationwide injunctions. The US president's ratings across several polls has declined. Voices from within the Republican camp and the larger MAGA movement are critical of many of his decisions. But Trump remains confident of retaining control in the midterm elections next year. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, millions of people across northeastern Nigeria are struggling daily to put food on the table.
And this is as the region faces a deepening crisis. Nigerian farmers who once fed their communities now face severe food shortages caused by years of conflict. And this prolonged violence has displaced countless families, cut off access to farmlands, and disrupted the usual rhythm of growing and harvesting food. Reports suggest more than 3.7 million people are grappling with food insecurity.
We go to bed hungry sometimes for 2 to 3 days, and when God provides something, you will get to eat.
In towns like Dikwa, villagers walk several kilometers to reach farmlands where they spend a few hours working the soil to grow crops. With few job opportunities available, subsistence farming remains the only way many can survive. The lack of food has led to widespread malnutrition, especially among children under the age of 5 and pregnant women.
Now, it's very difficult. We can only leave for the farms by 10 a.m. and must start returning by noon. Some people trek up to 3 hours to reach their farms.
Meanwhile, efforts are underway to tackle this issue. The International Committee of the Red Cross has set up centers to treat malnutrition. It also runs programs to teach families how to care for vulnerable children. And despite actions taken to combat this crisis, the situation remains grim. The ongoing environmental challenges are making the progress slow and uncertain.
For more details on this, our correspondent Louisa Oliani has sent us this report. Listen to this.
A recent assessment by the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, reveals a worsening hunger crisis among subsistence farmers in conflict-affected areas. Years of conflict in Nigeria's northeast have taken a devastating toll. Families have been displaced, farmlands abandoned, and local food production disrupted. The organization warns that without urgent scale-up, millions risk starvation. Locals say farming is the only way out of this hunger crisis. Yet, insecurity makes it a dangerous gamble. The ICRC is stepping in, providing seeds for crops like rice and maize, and training farmers in sustainable practices. But fear is that with the lean season hitting hard, the challenges remain immense as they call for urgent collaboration to avert severe hunger. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olaniyi, WION World is One.
In a case that sparked national and global outrage, prominent Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi has been released on bail.
Now, the Nairobi court has dropped controversial terrorism charges against him. Mwangi, a well-known government critic, now faces a lesser charge of unlawful possession of ammunition. The move comes after deadly anti-government protests swept the country in recent weeks. The violence left dozens dead, thousands of businesses destroyed.
I think so we can rise him. Because you're terrorizing Ruto's heart and Ruto knows that he's good.
Mwangi chanted Ruto must go in court, pleaded not guilty and was released on a bail bond. Speaking outside the court, Mwangi accused the president, William Ruto, of fearing the country's youth. Human rights groups have condemned what they call a heavy-handed government response to dissent, including the widespread use of terrorism charges against protesters. Mwangi was detained on Saturday.
Mass protests first erupted in Kenya in June 2024 over tax hikes and reignited last month amid widespread reports of police violence and illegal detentions. Rights groups estimate that over 100 people have been killed by police during the protests. Meanwhile, the government data shows only 42 deaths.
And Australia's Labour government gets a major boost in public support.
This less than 3 months after election victory and a day ahead of first session of the Parliament, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's Labour government is seeing a rare surge in approval ratings.
Now, according to the latest news poll, Labour's primary vote has risen to 36%, a 1.4-point gain since its election win on the 3rd of May. Then on the other hand, the opposition coalition has fallen to just 29%, and that's the lowest primary vote ever recorded for the coalition in news poll history since 1985.
Now, the data shows a wider trend. Voter support for the two major parties is shrinking. Labour and the coalition now account for just 65% of the combined primary vote, and this is the lowest ever recorded. The Greens hold steady at 12%, while One Nation has ticked up to 8%, a rise of 1.6 points. Independents and minor parties remain stable at 15%.
Now, on leadership, Prime Minister Albanese's net approval rating is at break-even. 47% of voters now approve of his performance, while an equal number remain dissatisfied. The release of the survey coincides with the official opening of Australia's 48th Parliament that is scheduled to convene on the 22nd of July. Labour currently holds a commanding 94 seats in the 150-member House of Representatives, having a comfortable majority as the new session begins.
Now, talent is no longer a resource, it's an arsenal, and the battle is about million-dollar payouts.
The world's tech giants led by Meta and Apple are tearing up the rule book. No loyalty, no legacy, no boundary is sacred now. Rivals trade executives and engineers, and if chess pieces, each determined to buy supremacy in the white-hot field of artificial intelligence.
Meta has reportedly dangled as much as $200 million to poach Ru Mingpeng, Apple's former AI lead, into its superintelligence team.
Well, it helped build the core of Apple's foundation model efforts, quietly powering everything from Siri upgrades to behind-the-scenes generative tech. Now he's switched allegiances and joined Meta's AI Avengers. His rumored 9-figure deal isn't just an industry flex, it might be the blueprint for how future tech salaries are shaped.
Now, Meta Superintelligence Labs has scooped up 2 more Apple engineers, Mark Lee and Tom Gunter, along with 10 researchers from OpenAI, Google, DeepMind and Anthropic.
Now, across the board, offers are routinely including $400,000 plus base salaries, lavish sign-on bonuses and equity stacking up to tens of millions annually. One machine learning star even received a $480,000 salary at Meta before the bonuses.
Meanwhile, Apple struggles to stem the flow. Its highly touted Siri improvements are delayed as top AI talent is lured away. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg insists it's not just about the money. He highlights unmatched computing power and autonomy, features he claims are drawing researchers more than pay packets.
The Titanic Tug of war is reshaping how AI companies plan. Graduate recruitment is falling by half, with firms shifting towards hiring battle-seasoned engineers because today's AI breakthroughs demand real-world jobs.
Now, beacon of hope pierces the darkness of cancer treatment. Revolutionary nano-vaccine technology in groundbreaking animal trials has achieved a stunning feat.
And completely suppressing the aggressive recurrence and spread of cancer. While human clinical trials remain distant, the preliminary results ignite the promise of truly personalized life-saving therapies. Cancer is an enemy that never stops adapting, returning, metastasizing after every clinical victory. But a new challenger just stepped onto the field.
Early experiments with the state-of-the-art nano-vaccine have throttled the very machinery behind cancer's vicious return, extinguishing recurrence and stalling the spread in animal studies with a ferocity that leaves traditional therapies behind.
Scientists in China and Singapore have masterminded this bio-inspired weapon using nanoparticle technology to target not only ordinary cancer cells but also their most cunning architects, cancer stem cells, whose dormant potential can reawaken and fan new malignancies after surgery or even chemotherapy.
Unlike old school treatments that merely wound, this nano-vaccine targets the root cause, delivering an immune shockwave 7 times more effective than current options in slashing the risk of both relapse and spread of the disease. Human trials remain a challenge, but the design is compelling, modular, tunable, and targeted prices as well. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Him and I will be back with you after this short break. On the other side, India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar resigned from his post last night. In his resignation letter tendered to the President of India, Dhankar cited health reasons for stepping down as the Vice President.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with him, and I'm Shivan. Let's start with the headlines.
Congress expresses surprise at the sudden resignation of India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, saying it totally is unexpected and there is far more than meets the eye, urges him to reconsider the decision.
Iran's foreign minister says Tehran has no plans to abandon its nuclear program, including uranium enrichment, despite the severe damage caused by US strikes to its facilities. Remark comes ahead of renewed talks with European powers.
Zelensky says Russia and Ukraine will hold new peace talks on Wednesday in a follow-up to two earlier rounds that made little progress on ending the war. The talks will be held in Istanbul.
World Health Organization says its facilities in Gaza came under Israeli attack, echoing calls from Western countries for an immediate ceasefire as Israel expanded military operations to central city of Deir al-Balah.
He was caught off guard by the bombing in Syria and also the bombing of a Catholic church in Gaza. And in both accounts, the president quickly called the prime minister to rectify those situations.
White House press secretary says the US president was caught off guard by Israeli strikes in Syria last week, adding that Trump quickly called Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to rectify the situation.
Trump administration releases hundreds of thousands of pages of records about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., despite concerns from the civil rights leader's family.
White House bars the Wall Street Journal from traveling with US President Trump during his upcoming visit to Scotland, after the newspaper reports that he wrote body birthday message to sex trafficker Epstein.
Gold prices surged over 1% to hit a 5-week high, trading above $3,390 an ounce as the US dollar and bond yields weakened ahead of the August 1st trade deal deadline.
Former England midfielder Paul Gascoigne is back home after being hospitalized over the weekend. The 58-year-old has battled alcohol addiction for decades and has also had other health problems in recent years.
And in a development which shocked everyone, India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar resigned from his post.
In his resignation letter tendered to the President of India, Dhankar cited health reasons for stepping down as the Vice President. He had recently undergone angioplasty at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, in Delhi.
Dhankar's resignation came on a day when Parliament had just convened for the monsoon session. Shortly before he tendered his resignation, Dhankar allowed the notice of motion for the removal of High Court Judge Yashwant Verma over burnt wads of cash found at his residence. He mentioned it in the House and asked the Secretary General to take further necessary steps. Now, the Vice President also administered the oath to new members of the upper house of Indian Parliament, the Rajya Sabha. He also presided over the Business Advisory Committee meeting.
Now, Dhankar's 5-year term as the 14th Vice President was supposed to end on the 10th of August 2027. Tendering his resignation, Dhankar expressed gratitude to President Draupadi Murmu for her unwavering support and described their working relationship as soothing and wonderful. He also thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi for cooperation, calling his support invaluable.
Other vice presidents in the past who resigned or left office mid-term include K.R. Narayanan and Shankar Dayal Sharma, who resigned as vice presidents before completing their term to take the office of the President of India, while R. Venkataraman served as vice president for 3 years, after which he was elected as the President of India. Similarly, V.V. Giri resigned as vice president after being elected as the President.
However, Dhankar is the first vice president to quit for reasons other than contesting polls or taking over as president after winning the election. Congress's Jairam Ramesh said Dhankar's resignation is shocking as it is inexplicable. In a post on X, he said that he was with the vice president alongside a number of other MPs till around 5 p.m. on Monday and had spoken to him over the phone at 7:30 p.m. IST, concluding that there is far more to this unexpected resignation than meets the eye.
Don't be guided by narratives outside. All decisions in this country, a sovereign nation, are taken by its leadership. There is no power on the planet to dictate India how to handle its affairs.
And a senior lawyer, Dhankar began his journey into politics after being elected to the 9th Lok Sabha from Rajasthan's Jhunjhunu parliamentary constituency in 1989.
He served as the governor of the state of West Bengal from July 2019 to 2022. He was elected as the vice president in August 2022 after being fielded by ruling BJP-led NDA alliance. Let's also take a look at all the reactions that are coming in from politicians. Listen to this.
I am not going to speculate, reasons as to why he has resigned. He has said that it is because of health reasons. So I don't want to speculate. But yes, I can say this, that he perhaps was one of the most proactive chairmen of the Rajya Sabha that we have seen over the years. And he would always persuade members on this side and that side to work with each other. For ultimately we work for the country. And he always advised us to do so.
का मुद्दा है, फिर बिहार में वोटर्स का है, और ट्रंप ने जिस तरह से हमारे भारत देश की अवमानना किया है, ये सारे बड़े मुद्दे हैं जिसमें धनखड़ जी की उपस्थिति बहुत ज़रूरी है। अब मुझे तो कुछ बड़ा अटपटा सा लग रहा है। लगता है कि कहीं इन मुद्दों को टालने के लिए तो कुछ ऐसा नहीं किया जा रहा है।
आज मानसून सत्र का पहला दिवस है और आज ही के दिन उनका इस्तीफा हो जाता है। ये इस सरकार में चल क्या रहा है? हमेशा जब कोई ऐसी बड़ी घटना होने वाली होती है तो वो बिना बताए, बिना उस पर चर्चा हुए हो जाती है। अरे जगदीप धनखड़ जी ये इस्तीफा 4 दिन पहले दे सकते थे, सेशन के बाद दे सकते थे, बहुत पहले दे सकते थे। अब ये क्या है हमें नहीं पता। हम तो सिर्फ यही चाहेंगे कि आदरणीय धनखड़ साहब खूब स्वस्थ रहें, दीर्घायु रहें। लेकिन अब बताइए, इसके जो नए चुनाव होंगे, जो नए उपराष्ट्रपति होंगे, उनमें समय जाएगा। ये सेशन अभी पूरा चलना है, कौन चेयरपर्सन बनेगा।
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Aditi Fadnis from New Delhi. She is a journalist and contributing editor for Business Standard. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Of course, this is a shocking development that we're seeing right now. Various voices that we've heard from parties and other leaders. What is your reaction to this?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, when he was speaking to students of JNU, he made it very clear that his resignation was going to come when it is supposed to come, which is in August 2027. Instead of that, he has resigned midway through his term, and also with no sort of prior indication that he was going to take this step. So Mr. Dhankar has been a very senior lawyer. He his colleagues, when I spoke to them when he was appointed Vice President and Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, they told me that he was one of the first senior advocates in the High Court, in the Rajasthan High Court, to win so many cases that he acquired a Mercedes and used to drive to the High Court in a Mercedes Benz. That is the extent of his competence. But sometimes we know that your competence as a lawyer can lead you to make comments on the judiciary and what the government is doing with the judiciary and the relationship between the government and the judiciary that can put you in a somewhat embarrassing, if not discomforting position. We can only guess, we can only speculate that this is what caused this. Although he did, as one of the last steps he took before he quit, did introduce the question of impeachment into the Rajya Sabha. A senior judge who was found, whose house cash was discovered, which was unaccounted, is in the process of being impeached.
I hear your point,
So-
Ms. Fadnis. There is a lot of speculation, as you mentioned, that is going around. Opposition leaders, Jairam Ramesh called it inexplicable, and of course, right now, if we were to, it has already happened. But another big question right now, along with why it happened, is what next? Who's the next Vice President of India, or who will be the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, where in monsoon session has already started in Parliament? How do you see this one going forward?
Well, the procedure is very clear. The deputy chairman will step into the breach. He is also a very seasoned and a very gentle person. And he will preside over the House till such time as a new Vice President is elected. The House will continue till, I think, the end of August. So he will take on the charge of the Vice President, as he used to do when the Vice President was indisposed or otherwise.
All right. Ms. Fadnis, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this. Of course, how this pans out, that remains to be seen. Thank you so much.
All right, let's move further. At this point, the Indian Prime Minister will travel to the United Kingdom and Maldives from the 23rd to the 26th of this month.
Now, this visit is aimed at bolstering India's economic, strategic and regional partnerships with both the countries. During the first leg of his visit, Prime Minister Modi will be in the UK on the 23rd of July and the 24th at the invitation of British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. According to the MEA, Prime Minister Modi will hold discussions with Starmer on a range of issues including trade, defence and education.
India and UK are expected to sign the free trade agreement finalized in May after 3 years of negotiations. Modi will also call on King Charles. From London, Prime Minister Modi will head to the Maldives on the 25th and 26th of July, where he will be the guest of honour at Maldives' 60th Independence Day celebrations. And this would be Modi's first visit since President Moizu came to power in the Maldives in November of 2023. The two leaders will review progress on the joint vision for a comprehensive economic and maritime security partnership adopted during Moizu's visit to India in October of last year.
And for more on this, our Assistant Editor Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, has sent us this report. Listen to this.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be travelling to the United Kingdom and Maldives later this week. His visit starts from United Kingdom, where the key focus will be on the India-UK Free Trade Agreement, which has been agreed on, and the formal signing will take place. And we have seen multiple rounds of talks happening so that this FTA can be agreed on. But we know that India-UK relationship has been historic, and people-to-people relationship forms the bedrock of the relationship, given the large Indian diaspora in the country. Now, the next stop of the Indian Prime Minister will be in the neighbourhood in Maldives, where he will be the guest of honour at the Maldives' 60th Independence Day celebrations. We know that this is his first visit to the country under the leadership of President Muiz. He has been to Maldives in the past, the last being in 2019. But this visit comes at a time when there has been a turnaround in the relationship. We saw a lot of thrill in the relationship when President Muiz took charge, but through concerted and quiet diplomacy, the relationship are back to normal, and expect number of MOUs to be signed during the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the country later this week. With video journalist Piyush Siddhansubal for WION in New Delhi.
Bangladesh witnessed the country's deadliest aviation accident in decades. This happened yesterday when a fighter jet crashed into a school in Dhaka,
killing at least 20 people and injuring more than 170. A military statement said the Chinese-made F-7 BJI aircraft crashed following a mechanical failure and the pilot were among the 20 killed. The statement also added that the pilot attempted to divert the plane into a less populated area before crashing into Milestone School and College in Dhaka.
Visuals showed a fire and plumes of black smoke billowing from the site of the crash as rescue personnel rushed to douse the fire and take out the injured. Most of the victims of this deadly crash are children. The parents and relatives of the students were seen at the site and hospital, desperately looking for their loved ones.
I live in Mirpur, and my younger brother lives in Uttara. When I heard about the crash, Ed, I rushed there immediately. I went to 2 hospitals, but didn't find him, the nephew Ed. Then I learnt that he was here, at the National Burn Institute, and came here.
Grieving relatives of the victims thronged the hospital while dozens of volunteers lined up to donate blood.
A student recalled the horror from the moment when the tragedy struck the school.
Most of the students were in class. It was probably break time, so a few students were coming out, but the majority were still in class. There was a lady teacher with me who said that the lady teacher in the next room had one side of her face completely burned. Even when I arrived here, there was a teacher with me. The side of his back, his face and his hands were severely burned. His condition was really bad.
The interim government of Mohammad Yunus has announced a day of national mourning in Bangladesh today, with flags to fly at half-staff across the country. Along with this, Yunus has also ordered for a detailed investigation into the jet crash. He said that the nation is in shock.
The faces of those children, many of them unknown, haunt us all. The whole nation is in shock. Even saying we are heartbroken feels inadequate.
Now, amid Trump's tariff war, China and Vietnam are scheduled to conduct the first joint army exercise.
The drills will take place this month. Militaries of both China and Vietnam will conduct these drills in the Guangxi region, which borders Vietnam. The exercise comes at a time when the two countries seek to deepen military ties as they grapple with Trump's reciprocal tariff rates. Now, in the past, China and Vietnam have participated in several joint naval drills, but this will be the first time that armies of both countries are conducting a joint exercise.
Both nations already have deep economic ties, with China being Vietnam's largest trading partner. Now, despite territorial disputes, the two countries are looking to bolster military cooperation.
Now, in April this year, China's army troops had participated in Vietnam's annual parade, marking 50 years since the end of Vietnam's civil war. This was the first such appearance made by China's military, as Beijing looks to keep ties warm amid growing American proximity to the Philippines in the region. Has Bitcoin found a new purpose? Crypto enthusiasts seem to answer that, pointing to the metric surge in the OG token's price.
But critics warn things could still go wrong. Take a look at this next report for more on this.
The concept of Bitcoin captivated the public immediately when it first gained attention in 2013. Its value skyrocketed in that year from $13 to $747. Bitcoin's nature as decentralized digital money that eliminates the need for intermediaries like banks made it famous. 12 years on, the world's best-known cryptocurrency has toppled $123,000. Tens of thousands of personal fortunes have made, some have lost as well along the way. But for all the talk of Bitcoin going mainstream, it never really threatened to displace regular currencies as a way to pay for groceries or buy a car. It has not gained any traction for even sending money across borders. That is a business arguably ripe for disruption, given the significant fees involved. The main reason why Bitcoin is still a thing has little to do with payments. What's pushed it to a new meteoric high is its embrace by mainstream finance as a supercharged alternative to stocks, bonds, real estate, and gold. A growing list of Bitcoin millionaires has made others hungry for some of the action. Now that has put investment advisors under pressure to offer their clients some exposure to the digital token. Big financial institutions are now offering Bitcoin exchange-traded funds. They're marketing the ETFs as a tool for investors to diversify their portfolios and hedge against inflation risk. This shift has received the US government's blessing, thanks to a flurry of legislation pushed by pro-crypto President Donald Trump. Yet critics say mainstream finance's alliance with virtual currencies raises important questions. For example, how can bankers responsibly recommend an asset with no intrinsic value besides its scarcity? Even gold can be made into jewelry, and if Bitcoin's price is sustained solely by the hope that more people will buy it, what happens when the last financial institution willing to embrace it has done so? Critics argue FOMO, or the fear of missing out, is the main reason for Bitcoin's surge. They say Bitcoin owners don't receive the regular income or yield that comes from owning bonds or shares. The OG token's value comes from the fact that the supply is limited. Settlement of traders using Bitcoin can be slow during periods when its blockchain network gets congested. Its price is notoriously volatile. So it's hard to know exactly how many apples, shoes, or Lamborghinis your Bitcoin will get you from one week to the next. Traditional currencies don't tend to suffer the kinds of price swings seen with Bitcoin unless a nation is in a state of political or economic turmoil. Crypto enthusiasts say that is exactly where Bitcoin comes into play. Bitcoin's value today is derived from its perceived role as a macro hedge. More importantly, some of the biggest players in global finance are dabbling in Bitcoin today. While the debate between the naysayers and crypto enthusiasts continues, whether Bitcoin eventually displaces regular currencies will be a key theme in the coming months. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Now, Jasprit Bumrah will play in the Manchester Test.
And the series is on the line for the men in blue, and India's premier pacer will be available for the fourth Test. Mohammad Siraj confirmed the development on Monday.
Yes, Jasprit Bumrah will play. The team combination keeps changing, but we will stick to our game plan. The idea is to apply as much pressure as we can on the English batters.
India is 2-1 down in the series, and there's a full-blown injury crisis in the squad, which leaves India with no option but to opt for Bumrah in the playing 11. Remember, the initial plan was to only select Bumrah in 3 of the 5 tests due to workload management, and this will be his third match of the series as well. But that plan could change going forward, given the current scenario.
The details of India's injury crisis will be on your screen shortly. All-rounder Nitish Kumar Reddy has been ruled out of the remainder of the series, while pacer Arshdeep Singh will miss the Manchester Test. Pacer Akashdeep is also nursing a groin injury, and although he hasn't been ruled out of the Manchester Test, he is still a doubt. While Rishabh Pant is also recovering from a hand injury, but is expected to be fit.
Meanwhile, England have made just the one change to their lineup. Left-arm spinner Liam Dawson will make a return to the Test cricket after 8 long years. He will replace Shoaib Bashir, who broke his finger during the Lord's Test.
Wrap up,
And with that, we call to wrap on this edition of World DNA.
And before we slip into a short break, here are all the climate stories making headlines across the world. Stay with us. This is WION World is One. News and updates on the other side.